Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, whimsically referred to as Glenda the Good Stitch. In this short video, I'm going to give you a lesson about kyphosis. And you're likely wondering, what is kyphosis? I did too. Many of you know that I do private fitting retreats with my customers, and this lady called and said she'd like to come and that she had kyphosis. And I had to say, what is that? So she told me, and so that you all will know what kyphosis is, I have a Wikipedia definition. Kyphosis is an abnormally excessive convex curvature of the spine as it occurs in the thoracic and sacral regions of our spine. It can result from degenerative disc disease, developmental abnormalities, but most commonly from osteoporosis. Kyphosis is distinguished from scoliosis, a condition in which the spine has a sideways curvature. Kyphosis is the opposite. It has a convex curvature. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here is the lady who came, and she has given me permission to use her photographs. Thank you so much. And let's take a look at the photographs now. You can see that at the neckline, it isn't doing up at the neck because of the way her head is thrust forward. Her neck is thrust forward as a result of the back curvature, and her head is thrust forward, so it won't do up. And this dress, by the way, I should say, is basically just straight out of the box without any changes. I needed to see it the way it was in order to make the significant changes to make it fit her properly. Now, underneath her bust and between her bust level and the waist, you can see where the fabric has collapsed. And that's again from a kind of a hunched forward stance on the body. And yes, we shortened the sleeve. The sleeve was just a little bit too long, but that has nothing to do with kyphosis. That was a very easy fix to do that. All right, in the next photograph, you are seeing, again, the collapse at the center front of the bodice. This is a side view, obviously. And then we also have the neckline, and here you can see where her neck is coming forward and the center front of the neck point won't do up. Now, when we look at the back, you're going to see that I already cut the back open, and I pretty much had to do that so that we could do it up on her body. But without the back of her test garment being cut open, just imagine that being closed. It pulled this back neckline even further back on her body and took the shoulder line and really skewed it backward. So we needed to adjust for the rounded curvature in her back. I needed to adjust for the shoulder line to move forward, and we also needed to shorten the front of the bodice. So now we'll take a look at just the back bodice, and you can see that by cutting it from basically underarm point to underarm point, I let the fabric spread open as much as it needed to in order for it to sit, let's say, relatively comfortably. This gave me an idea of how much I was going to need to spread open the center back of her pattern. And yes, of course, this does mean that it's going to need to have a center back seam because we needed to put a lot of shaping into the back of the pattern. So now, when we take a look at her pattern in the developmental stage, you can see these dotted blue lines indicate the slashes that I made. So from center back, I slashed across to the underarm point, then into the lower third of the armhole, and then into the upper third of the armhole. And the underarm point is a pivot point. So is this one. These little red circles are indicating pivot points. So what we're doing by keeping those as pivot points is when I slashed and spread open the center back, I wasn't distorting the armhole length. It was maintaining its correct length. You'll also notice that we put a back shoulder dart in place as well. So from a very straight of grain, you can see what's happening to it is it took on the curve of her back and the way her back was shaped. Now initially when I made my 3 cuts, I separated them all out the exact same amount. When I did her first test bodice, the back, the lower cut had a little bit too much of the fullness, so I narrowed that split, and then I gave a little bit more into these 2 curves or openings where she needed to have the width going up and around the curvature of her, the curvature of her back. Now we're going to take a look at the finished pattern. This is what it looks like. So from here, I'll just pull this one back. I just took the grain line and pulled it straight up, which is what you're seeing on this next photograph. And you can see the substantial curve that's been put into the center back of her body. It absolutely cannot be cut on the fold of the fabric. This is a situation where you have to have a curve. But by having this curve in the back of your body and shaping this so beautifully to her body, it means that any pattern that she designs from now on is going to fit her rounded back as beautifully as the test pattern did. So let's take a look. Here's a front view, and you can see how nicely the neckline is sitting on her now. And yes, I did need to lower the center front neck point, very definitely. And I did need to take the shoulder line and I needed to reposition those shoulder lines so that they moved forward. I needed to add more length in the back and take it away from the length of the front shoulder line so that the shoulder seam lines move forward. You can also see how nicely it's fitting now in the midriff area. All that amount of fabric that was collapsing in the front is now eliminated. And here's what the final test garment looks like on her body. You can see again her neckline, how it is shaped going downward, and you can see more of the contours of her neck and where her chin and face begins. And this is her normal body stance. And so this is just fitting beautifully. Look at how nicely that sleeve is hanging and fitting. And of course, we have very little collapsing of fabric in the front of the garment, and in the back, we've got a beautiful fit onto that convex curve that she has at her backbone. She was one happy camper when we got this bodice done for her. So with SureFit Designs, you can see that even with the body anomalies that you might have, with some refinement to the basic pattern, we can get it to fit you so well. And over the last 40 years, we have been helping customers throughout the entire world get patterns to fit their body properly. And part of the reason is, even though we need to do these minor tune-ups, we're starting with a base of your body measurements. So we have a head start when you draw off your pattern on the master patterns with SureFit Designs. We already have a head start. Then we have to do some refinements or tune-ups if your body calls for it. Some of you will sew straight out of the box. It all depends on your body, the anomalies you have, and the issues that you're dealing with. So with that, I would like to say I hope you've learned a little bit more about kyphosis. I know I certainly have. And I invite you to join the SureFit Designs community if you haven't already. To go to surefitdesigns.com, and there, when you join, there are free gifts to get you started. And also, if you do Facebook, we have a private Facebook group. There are 4 questions to answer, and just make sure you answer them. And actually, there's 3 questions, not 4, sorry about that. And make sure you answer them, and we will approve you. And like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a little button right below, and we appreciate your following SureFit Designs. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.